All right, let's dive into the life of Mother Teresa. We have this amazing YouTube documentary ready to go, and we're going to break down the most interesting parts. Everyone knows her, right? But did you know just how much she really did?
It's pretty remarkable. She wasn't just, a saintly figure. There was a whole journey there. And that's what's so fascinating, I think. All the challenges, all the things she had to overcome.
Yeah, definitely. Well, let's start at the beginning then. She was born Agnes Gongsa Bojaxia back in 1910.
Wow.
I was so surprised to learn she left her family when she was only 18 to join a convent in Ireland.
Wow, that's young.
And get this, she never saw them again after that.
Leaving your family behind at 18 to dedicate your life to service, that's a huge decision. It really shows just how strong her calling was, even at that young age.
Right. It really makes you wonder what that must have been like.
Mm-hmm.
And after Ireland, she traveled to India to train and took her vows in 1937 as Mother Mary Teresa. So for almost 20 years, she taught at a high school in Kolkata. But then things changed. Big time.
Yeah, and this is where it gets really interesting. Think about Kolkata back then, especially after that terrible famine in '43. The city was just overwhelmed. Poverty, suffering, everywhere. It's understandable that Mother Teresa felt like she had to do something more.
You can just imagine how much that experience must have affected her. So while she's on a train in 1946, she has what she called a call within a call. Like, whoa, her purpose just totally shifted. She knew she needed to leave the convent and serve the poorest of the poor.
She even said later on that to fail in this new mission would have been like breaking faith for her. So you can tell it wasn't a light decision.
Wow. So I'm curious, when she finally gets permission to leave, what were her first steps? I mean, she didn't have any resources, did she?
No, not really. She started completely from scratch. Like, she designed that blue-striped sari habit as a symbol of her order's vows. And with no financial backing, she relied on, begging and prayer for supplies.
Wow. Talk about starting from nothing. And to think, that was just the beginning of the Missionaries of Charity.
It's incredible, really. And eventually she actually became an Indian citizen. She even received basic medical training. And little by little, other women who felt that same calling, they started to join her.
I love that it just grew organically, from that shared desire to serve. So did they start opening schools and hospitals right away?
Well, it was a gradual process. I mean, they began by focusing on the basics, food, shelter. But Mother Teresa, she truly believed that real compassion was more than just pity. She wanted to understand and respect the people she served, not just feel sorry for them,
That's a good point. To see the inherent dignity in every person, no matter what their circumstances are. Yeah. Something we could all learn from, really.
Absolutely. And one initiative that shows that so well is Shanti Nagar, a home specifically for people with leprosy, which, was and still is very stigmatized. But she wanted to create a space where those individuals felt valued.
So it wasn't just about, giving them a place to stay. It was more about giving them a purpose, right?
Exactly. They focused on giving them work opportunities, helping them regain that sense of independence. And you know what? It became a largely self-sufficient community. Like, the residents, they even made the saris worn by the Missionaries of Charity.
That's amazing. It seems like that empowerment was always at the heart of her approach. It wasn't just handing things out. It was much more. But it wasn't always easy, right? As her work became well known, I mean, didn't she also face some pushback?
Yeah, it's true. Not everyone was on board with her methods. And, there were critics. Some questioned the quality of care provided in the homes, concerns about, hygiene and medical practices. And then, of course, there was the controversy surrounding her stance on things like contraception and abortion, especially in the context of, poverty and overpopulation.
Yeah. It's a good reminder that even someone known for compassion can spark strong opinions and disagreements. Right. It's complex.
It is. And I think it's important to acknowledge these criticisms, but also to try to understand them within the context of her life and beliefs. It opens up a conversation, about ethics and the role of religion and social issues.
That's a great point. It challenges us to really engage with those tougher conversations instead of just praising or dismissing someone based on our own views.
Exactly. It's recognizing that even the most inspiring figures are, human, with their own complexities. And maybe that's what makes her story so interesting. It pushes us to reflect on our own values and how we approach these, complicated things.
Okay, so we've talked about her early life, the Missionaries of Charity getting started, the controversies. But I'm curious, what fueled her internally? I mean, we know she was deeply faithful, but was it always simple?
Well, that's where things get even more fascinating. A letter, written just a year before her death, called the Varanasi letter, it reveals something many don't expect.
Oh, what do you mean? What's in it?
She describes this deep contradiction she felt. He talks about longing for God, of course, but also this emptiness, worthlessness even, and even a feeling of being repulsed by God.
Wait, she struggled with doubt. That's surprising to hear, especially considering her, her public image of this unwavering faith.
Yeah, it's a stark contrast for sure. She even wrote about feeling like heaven meant nothing to her, like it was an empty place.
It really humanizes her, doesn't it? To think that someone who did so much could still feel doubt and anxiety.
Absolutely. And yet, even with all that, she never stopped serving others. She even encouraged her followers to strengthen their relationship with Jesus, even while questioning her own.
That's incredible. It makes you wonder, how did she reconcile those two sides? Was it like an inner turmoil? Or did it somehow strengthen her in some way?
It's a great question, and it's one I think we need to dig into a bit more to really get. But it definitely challenges our, assumptions about faith and what it means to live a life of service.
Yeah, I'm definitely intrigued. And I bet our listeners are too. It just adds so much more to her story. It makes everything she did even more remarkable.
Totally agree. It speaks to that, that human spirit, the power to keep going even when you're facing doubt and uncertainty.
Okay, we've covered a lot. We talked about her early life, her calling, founding the Missionaries of Charity, the controversies, and now this whole other side with her personal struggles. So where do we go from here?
Well, next, I think we need to look at the impact of her work. How did what she did actually translate into real change? What kind of legacy did she leave?
That's a perfect place to pick back up. I'm really curious to hear more about how her vision continues to inspire people today.
Me too. And I think our listeners will be surprised by just how far her influence has reached.
So before, we were talking about those personal struggles with faith, and it really got me thinking, we put people like her on a pedestal, like they have it all figured out.
It's true. We forget that even saints are human. They have the same doubts, the same pain, the same struggles as everyone else.
Right. And knowing that about her, it makes all that she did even more incredible. It's like a whole other dimension to her story.
It really speaks to her commitment because it wasn't just about feeling good or taking the easy path. It was a choice, you know, every day choosing to help others, even when she was dealing with her own darkness.
Yeah. It's like those struggles almost fueled her work. Okay, so we've talked about her life, starting the Missionaries of Charity, those controversies and those doubts. But what about the actual impact? Did it really make a difference?
Oh, absolutely. Mother Teresa's impact is, it's undeniable. The Missionaries of Charity, her order, it continues in 133 countries today. Over 5,000 sisters. Her legacy is definitely alive.
Those numbers are huge. It's amazing to think about the ripple effect. But how did her work actually translate into real change? Like, what were the tangible outcomes?
Well, think beyond just the numbers, right? Think about the awareness she created. She became this global voice for the poor. She made the world see it, confront it, and she challenged us all to do something.
That's true. It wasn't just serving, it was changing the whole conversation, right?
Exactly. It was empowerment, not just aid. Remember Shanti Nagar, that community we talked about? That's a great example. Not pity, but dignity. Opportunity.
And the residents making those saras, that's powerful, real self-sufficiency.
Right. She believed everyone has something to offer. It wasn't just providing, it was helping them flourish.
Okay, so huge impact on the world. But what about her personal legacy? What can we learn from her life, even if we don't share her beliefs?
There's a lot there for everyone. First, compassion has no limits. She didn't just talk about it, she lived it, shared their struggles. Her whole life was dedicated to helping.
Yeah. Actions speak louder than words, for sure. It's one thing to feel sympathy, another to actually live like that.
And she showed us perseverance. Doubt, criticism, huge challenges. She never wavered. Her faith kept her going, even when it was hard.
And with that letter, the Varanasi letter, it's even more inspiring. To know she was dealing with all that internally, it adds a whole new layer.
For sure. And it shows us we all can overcome obstacles, make a difference, even with our own personal stuff going on.
Another thing, she started with nothing. No money, no training, just this burning desire.
It's a reminder, right? We don't need wealth or power to make an impact. Sometimes all it takes is that willingness to help, to step outside ourselves.
It flips the script on what we think of as success. It's not about stuff. It's about impact.
Exactly. Her life is a call to action. Even small acts of kindness matter. They can ripple out and create real change.
So what are some concrete things people can do? It's one thing to admire her, but how can we apply this?
It doesn't have to be huge. Volunteer at a soup kitchen, donate, or just listen to someone who needs it.
Right. It's that conscious effort, compassion, love in our everyday lives.
And that honors her legacy. It helps create a better world. It's a cycle. She inspired millions. Now we can be inspired and create our own impact.
This has been really insightful. I feel like I understand her so much more now. Not just the saintly figure, but the whole person. All the struggles, but all the good she did.
I agree. And the key takeaway, maybe, is that we can all do extraordinary things through compassion, dedication, and a willingness to serve.
So to our listeners, we ask, what resonated with you? How can you take these insights and apply them to your life?
It's a question worth thinking about. What act of kindness will you do today?
You know, it's amazing how someone who lives so differently in a totally different world can still, speak to us today.
That's the thing about stories, right? Human stories, they just connect us on this deeper level, no matter where you're from or what you believe. And hers, well, it's definitely a powerful example.
Yeah, totally. And it makes you think, about your own assumptions, your own priorities, like what really matters.
I think that's why she's still relevant. She challenged those ideas of success, of fulfillment, in a world that's all about stuff and individual, achievement. She focused on the opposite, on those who needed the most help.
It's like she flipped the script. Instead of focusing on what she could get, she was all about giving.
And in doing that, she found something, a purpose, an inner peace, the kind of thing people search for their whole lives.
It really shows you, doesn't it? True fulfillment, maybe it comes from being part of something bigger, recognizing that connection we all have, and that our actions, they actually matter.
Her story reminds us, even little things, those small acts of kindness, they can ripple out and make a difference.
It's about changing that mindset from what's in it for me to how can I help?
Exactly. Seeing that inherent worth in every person, treating everyone with compassion, respect, love.
And it doesn't have to be this big grand thing. It can be as simple as helping a neighbor, volunteering, or even just like listening to someone.
Her legacy is like this invitation for all of us to find our own way to serve, to leave the world a little better than we found it.
It's pretty inspiring to know her work continues through the missionaries of charity. Her spirit lives on in everyone she touched.
It just goes to show you, one person can change things. And we can all do the same. We all have that potential.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into Mother Teresa's life, what's the one thing you want our listeners to take away?
Don't underestimate yourself. The power you have to make a difference. Every act of kindness, no matter how small, matters. It all builds towards a more just and compassionate world. So what will you do? What will your contribution be?
That's a great question and a great place to end things. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into the life and legacy of Mother Teresa.
It's been great exploring this with you. Until next time.